At the 2020 Auto Expo, there is a lot of talk about the new entrants, and the all-new entrant this time, undoubtedly GWM, Great Wall Motor Company. There's been a lot of anticipation, a lot of speculation, and I can tell you that now that it's all open to the public, there's also a lot of excitement because there's a massive range on display here. So what's the objective of bringing this massive portfolio? Let's get those details from Hardeep Singh Brar, who's joining us right now. He's Director Sales and Marketing. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for letting us on here, because you've got the two coveted concepts and we are nicely sandwiched between them, so that's great. First Auto Expo for GWM. Obviously that's a big deal, and from the company's perspective we understand why. Now that, like I said, it's open to the public, is a large part of that finally coming to life?
Yes, of course. As you are aware that GWM has been in existence since 1984, and it's been 36 years, and now we are present in more than 60 countries and practically every continent, and India was one of the countries which was missing in the overall piece, and now India is large enough, and more importantly the SUV segment is growing. And as you know, GWM is the leading SUV maker in China, and for the last 10 consecutive years. And now when SUV segment is growing despite all the turbulence in the market, we felt this is the right time. It is almost touching 25% of the overall volumes in terms of SUV. It makes absolute sense to bring it into India, and there can't be any better event than to launch in the Auto Expo. So there we are.
You know, you almost preempted my next question about, or not even next, it could have probably come later, about timing, slow down, but you're right, SUV is the sweet spot. And if there was any doubt about that, by the way, concept car, it's an SUV. The other concept car, it's an SUV. If you turn around and look at the rest of the stand, why don't you do that? You can see SUVs galore. So really, you know, no surprise then that you certainly will get a lot of attention, because, you know, you're right. Not only is it the high growth area, but it's also the high interest area. People are excited by SUVs. I'm sure you've seen enough selfies being taken over the last couple of days. And with the SUV space, there's also this sense of sort of premiumness. Do you think that's a good thing? It kind of adds to the image, because for an unknown brand, maybe it's a good leg up from day one.
Absolutely, and you know, when you look at these products, and that's the feedback that we are getting from customers. You know, when they look inside, they see this huge premiumness inside, the luxury, and I think that makes the task much easier in terms of building the brand around such a premium product. So you're absolutely right. The people are loving it. I think four things that they're loving it is the breakthrough styling what we are giving, the interior quality, fit, finish, and the intelligent safety which is on display. These are the four things which are people really loving about it, and that makes the task much easier in terms of building the brand.
I was of course speaking with your colleague Kaushik as well, and I was very excited to hear that, you know, it's two high points. I mean, there's SUV and then there's safety, and then there's of course the other brand that you've also announced, which is something that nobody saw coming. I think everybody just assumed that you're going to just have maybe the one brand strategy, but the fact that you're talking electrics almost hand in hand, so that you're not merging the two, but you're keeping the two having their own distinct identity. Of course, from your point, was always the strategy, but do you think that's a nice little surprise to throw at the market?
Of course. See, when you look at, we want to be really known as, we don't want to spread ourselves too thin. We want to be known as an SUV company and a company which makes electric vehicles. I think these are the two segments we are picking. One, we discussed that, one is growing already despite the turbulence, and another one is the segment where, there's a lot of impetus from the government. People are really looking forward to it, and one, we are able to take care of few aspects of electric vehicles. I think that's the next segment which we will be looking at a huge growth maybe over the next 3 to 5 years. So hence it makes absolute sense to be in few segments, but very relevant segments.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, one's growing already, the other one's poised to grow.
Yes,
I wish we could sort of put a date on it. But now that, of course you took the decision to first come to India, that's the bigger decision, but then also present yourself at the Expo. The question has to be asked that between now and the first market launch, because of course that's several months away, you have a lot of work cut out for you, no doubt about it. There is of course, taking over the plant itself, refurbishing that. But before we get into that aspect of it, from a consumer perspective, how do you keep this excitement going now? Because it is a big gap, and yet, on the one hand, you don't want to overpromise to them because they'll say, hey, I want the car now. On the other hand, you don't want them to forget about you. So how do you keep that going?
We'll be talking about our DNA, and people need to know what the GWM stands for. What does GWM SUV stand for? So there are a lot of things which we'll talk about during this course of time. And as I mentioned, brand building is one of the key areas, and all these elements, little elements in terms of features like lane keep assist, door open warning, and so on and so forth. I think these are the features which we'll keep talking about to share with them what GWM really stands for, what GWM has done in China to become the market leader, because you will appreciate that in the most competitive and the biggest market, if one can crack to be the biggest SUV maker, there has to be something very special, and that's what we are going to talk with our consumers.
No, and in a market which is firstly huge, and also a market where every world player exists.
Absolutely,
so more so than India. No, of course, it's a credit to Great Wall, but the whole point about we may as well discuss this aspect because it does come up straight away in the context of Chinese makers, where people almost have a sense that, oh, if it's Chinese, then maybe it's not that good. Now, I understand where that's coming from in a historical sense, but do you think in a way that the fact that these companies have waited to come to India, they weren't doing it from an Indian context, but the fact that it's worked out like that, where they have the scale now, they have the technology, they have the capability, they've also reached a certain, let's say, maturity in their product development, it allows you to sort of come in and from day one dispel that notion. So you must be happy that it's a stronger portfolio. Maybe 10 years ago it would not have been like that.
While I really can't comment on what it was 10 years back, but when you really look at the product now, and I would say that there is no wrong time to take a right step. I think this is the right step at the right time because the SUV segment is growing and the people want premiumness, right?
And 10 years ago that wasn't happening.
Yeah. So and when you look at these products, they're so premium, and people are falling in love with these cars. And as you see, our campaign is about mesmerizing India, and I've seen in this Auto Expo that people are really getting mesmerized when they're looking at outside and inside of the car. I think it's such a huge confidence builder for us at GWM.
The fact that you're sort of poised to take over the GM, the ex-GM plant, I should say now at Talegaon. No doubt, of course, you'll need to sort of refurbish it to cater to your current needs with the kind of vehicles that you're planning. But that's a big plant. So the indication and the message is that not only are you coming in, but you're coming in big. You're coming in and you're not going to sort of trickle into the market. On the one hand, that displays the confidence, obviously, that you have in the potential of the brand and the products. But on the other hand, does it also sort of put pressure on you to start firing straight away? Because while India is a big market, it's also a very competitive market.
See, I think it's very important to get it right. Rather than looking at volumes, you need to get your first few steps right. So I would put, our internal plan is to have quality first and quantity will follow. So that's the philosophy which that will be following. Yes, we have a huge capacity and one would like to utilize as quickly as possible, but I think it is important to do it the right way. And then of course we are looking at exporting some of the production capacity to neighboring countries and the countries which are relevant. So I think a mix of both, and we would like to ramp up domestic market as quickly as possible, but not at the expense of making mistakes. So we'll wrap it up step by step.
You also preempted my export question, so that's great. We got that part covered. That yes, you will be exporting. Product development, you already have that strength, so there's no need to sort of worry about that. But how much of the input would come from the Indian side? Because you have had that R&D input coming from India even before announcing the brand for India. So would you lean more on to the Bangalore end of things, and also would you look to maybe not just from an Indian context, but now that you are looking at an India portfolio as well, some extent at least, try and do something which is India specific?
As you know that our R&D center in Bangalore has been there for good 4 years, and while we were working a lot of stuff for the international market, but there was some little stuff going on from Indian perspective as well. But for the time being, I think major chunk of contribution will come from global R&D, because our Indian R&D is still smaller. But we are, as you know, we have announced $1 billion investment in India, while the major chunk will get into a manufacturing plant. But I think a good amount of chunk is also going to get into R&D. And going forward, we want to really strengthen it so that most of the work happens from India and there's less dependence on China. And that's the vision of our, the chairman, that India R&D should get stronger and we are more self-sufficient rather than looking up to China.
And that makes sense. I mean, obviously, you've already got so much of a strength, so why not use it? So, is it then correct for me to assume that I can interpret that to mean that you'll sort of start with some of your global products and then start to also get in some more indigenous products as you get settled in?
Yeah, so right now we will, it's a localization. We have a number of global products which are there. In fact,
I mean, of course, you localize those products. What I mean to say is you'll dip into that global portfolio basket.
Of course, yeah. So as you know, we have showcased a lot of global range that we have. We are trying to gauge consumer response on what kind of styling they are liking, what kind of interiors and what kind of colors are they liking, and then we'll dip into our global resources and
What's
see.
nice is you have a lot of colors.
Yes,
Not all SUV companies
yeah,
do that.
absolutely, yes.
So it's maybe I'm a little biased. I like them to be colorful.
Yeah.
Sorry. Please
Yeah. So we would like to bring in the product which suits their requirement the most and the colors the most, and also from interior perspective. So yes. So this is a testing ground, and I think soon we'll be finalizing what we are getting into.
Well, I mean, everybody's taking a lot of guesses on this one as well, because since it's debuting here, obviously there's a reason why you chose Delhi for the debut, so I won't ask you more than that. But speaking of the other side of the business, the electric side, yes, I understand the fact that the bigger buzz for now will come from the SUV, but without maybe putting a date on it, how would you sort of balance those two out? Where, at what point, maybe post the first SUV, can we expect the first electric?
See, right now we are in the stage where we are trying to finalize what should be the gap. But I think once we launch the SUV, and we are also in fact exploring whether we can have EV in the first SUV as well. Yeah. Right, that is another. But it will stay.
Both things.
Yes, yeah, it is.
Yeah,
right. But we are looking at EV. I think within a year of the first launch of. I think that makes perfect sense. Well, this is a ballpark figure that we are looking at. So that's what we are targeting, because you need consistency of products, and while giving a good product is important, but having consistency of products is equally critical, because that's what is happening in the marketplace. And if you want to crack the market, I think that's one of the critical components to be successful in this.
And I'm assuming that you would look at least some kind of local content, even on the EV side, so that given taxation, pricing would be a challenge otherwise. Do you see, I mean, given the fact that the company has its own capability, even in battery manufacturing and things like that, so it's not just, the final product, do you see that as like this inherent advantage, given the fact that, a lot of things when it comes to EV in India are yet to be sorted out? I'm not even going into the charging infrastructure conversation here. So do you think that becomes like an added advantage for you?
Yes. So as I mentioned, manufacturing plant and then R&D center is where our investment is going into. The third bigger piece is ramping up your supplier base, your vendor base, and that's what we are very. And you mentioned the point on localization. That's very, very critical to either manage your pricing well, or you make more money on that. So that's very important. And in terms of battery, yes, we have a battery plant in China, and I think we are also exploring whether we can look at that stuff in India as well. So while it is at a very nascent stage, too early to say, but we will be exploring.
It's encouraging that you are saying that at word go, because most other people would have sort of even maybe gone out and said, oh, of course we can't think of that right now. But the fact that you are thinking about that, I mean, I don't see that as aggressive. I see that as comprehensive, in the sense that you're already foreseeing what your requirement could be. So, well, I think there's lots to look forward to, clearly. The part that I personally want to find out is how soon I can get to drive some of these cars, because it's one of those things where rarely do I get to say I've not driven any of them. So yeah, I'm itching to drive them.
So the short answer to that is 2021.
Okay, all right, fair enough. So I'm going to have to wait just like you're going to have to wait. But it's going to be worth the wait, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Siddharth.
I think the rest of the Auto Expo is something that I know you'll look forward to a lot. I know you said you're going to be here right through it. So do come if you're at the Expo and take a look at the cars for yourself. Otherwise, of course, on Car and Bike, you have those details as well. And yeah, there is a lot to take in. So if you are in the Delhi NCR region, you know where to head, at least right away. Thank you. And thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
All the best.
Thank you.